Hi, I am Dr. Felice Gersh, your integrative OBGYN, speaking to you from my office in sunny Irvine, California. So I'd like to reintroduce myself to those of you who haven't checked in a while and for those who are new. So I have a private practice office in Irvine, California, where I specialize in integrative medicine. That means looking at the whole woman, taking care of all aspects of her health, using all available evidence-based therapeutic modalities to help every woman to achieve and maintain optimal health. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a very important topic, a hormone that maybe you've obviously heard about, but may know very little about other than its use in promoting sleep. So, of course, the hormone I'm talking about is melatonin. So, melatonin is unbelievably an over-the-counter product. I don't understand how that can be, but it is. It's a hormone. It's known for its nighttime presence. It's produced primarily during the night, and it's made by the pineal gland, which is at the base of the brain, but it's also made elsewhere. For example, in the GI tract, the microbes that live there make melatonin, and the lining cells can make melatonin. In fact, there is more melatonin made in the gut than from the pineal gland. As well, melatonin can be made in other organs. It turns out that melatonin is made as well in the retina of the eye. And this is actually a very critical feature, especially for animals in the wild. It turns out that melatonin has a critical role in determining seasonal reproductive aspects of health. For example, I'm sure you all remember the story of Bambi, where the animals were all having their babies in the springtime. Remember that? Well, that is actually programmed by the hormone melatonin. The receptors in the retina perceive not just the 24-hour day and light, but actually keep track of the seasonality of light. Now, this is actually a very critical issue because in ancient times, there were no artificial lights at night. So wildlife had its normal reproductive cycles, including the seasonal cycle, so that reproduction would occur for optimal survival by having babies born typically in the springtime so that they could fatten up over the summer and then manage to survive along with the mom during the winter time. Well, guess what? Because of all the ambient light, the street lights, the signs, and all the lights from homes and such, even from lights that come from far, far away, there's more light in the atmosphere at night, and it's actually interfering with the reproductive functions of wildlife, which is really, really obviously critically important. Well, what about us humans? Well, melatonin has a very critical role in health. Now, many of you know that melatonin, as I said, is over the counter. Even though it's a very powerful, critically important hormone, you can actually buy it over the counter. I would emphasize that if you do this, that you make sure that you know who is producing this melatonin, because you want to get something that's pure and something that's high quality. Now, in terms of sleep, I'll just start with that. Well, it turns out that melatonin is critically important for our circadian rhythms, our 24-hour rhythms based on the 24-hour rotation of the earth on its axis. Well, melatonin is critically important to be produced at night, and its production peaks at 2 a.m., but not if you're not sleeping, and you need to go to sleep between 10 and 11 if you're going to get that critically important peak of melatonin during the night. Now, melatonin is an incredibly potent antioxidant. There are so many functions of melatonin that go far beyond its ability to help us sleep. Now, I am not minimizing sleep. Sleep is essential. Sleep is essential for every aspect of health. During the night when we sleep, I mentioned that melatonin peaks at 2 a.m. Guess what? At the same time, 2 a.m., we have a peak of blood flow to our brains, which helps our brains to detoxify and to function well and to rejuvenate. All of this is perfectly timed, but requires sleep. So melatonin is essential for allowing us to sleep. It turns out that if we want to make a lot of melatonin at night, we need to get sunlight during the day. It's been shown that the receptors for light in the retina are also involved with signaling the production of melatonin at night. So it's really, really important that we get bright sun during the day. If we can't, then we should purchase a light box, and then we can turn on the light box and get exposure in the early morning and around midday to 10,000 lux. That's the type of light measurement for about 30 minutes. But of course, natural sunlight is always best. I'm sure all of you have spent a day on the beach or in Disneyland, out in the bright sun, or you went on a boat trip and you just slept like a baby that night. Well, the sunlight helps to trigger the production as well of serotonin, the precursor of melatonin. So sunlight is necessary, and then darkness at night. So you need to either make the room very dark with like blackout shades, or you need to do what I do, and that is use a sleep mask to enable your eyes to be very, very enveloped in darkness. Even a little bit of ambient room light filtering through your eyelids will suppress the melatonin production. This is so important. As well, you need to not eat at night. It turns out that melatonin is really important for regulating the gut, the peristalsis and the gut enteric, the neurological system of the gut. But if we eat at night, we also impair the gut microbial population and the enterocytes, the lining cells of the gut, from making proper melatonin as well. And that's another reason why eating late at night gives you acid reflux, GERD, because your enteric nervous system becomes malfunctional. And one of the treatments, most people don't know this, but one of the treatments for GERD is melatonin. But of course, always best if you make your own. Now, what are some of the other amazing things about melatonin? Well, it turns out that melatonin is critically important for insulin regulation and glucose regulation. So if you don't get enough sleep, you end up with a higher rate of insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. Melatonin is very involved in the glucose regulation system of the body. That is something that many people do not know. As well, melatonin not only is a potent antioxidant, and that's really important for you to know, but it also works as a tumor suppressor function. So it turns out that melatonin helps to prevent the development of cancer. And melatonin can be used as an adjunct along with chemotherapy for cancers that are chemo-resistant or therapeutically not responding to chemotherapy. Melatonin can actually promote better response from chemotherapy. But without even having cancer as a therapy, melatonin helps to prevent cancers from developing in the first place by modulating the cancer genes that we have in our body, the tumor suppressor genes, to prevent cancer from happening in the first place. Melatonin helps to maintain a healthy blood pressure and also to maintain healthy levels of our lipids. So most people don't realize all the metabolic functions that melatonin has within the body. Glucose regulation, blood pressure regulation, cancer prevention, lipid regulation, promoting proper sleep, proper digestion. It's amazing. Now, here's something else that is truly amazing. It turns out that melatonin now has been recognized as critically important for the function of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the little energy-producing factories of the cell. And it turns out that mitochondria have a role in every single aspect of mitochondrial function. And in fact, they promote mitochondrial biogenesis, they call it mitogenesis, the production of mitogenesis, of mitochondrial being produced, and also rejuvenated, mitophagy. So mitogenesis, the production of mitochondria, and the, we'll say, rehabbing and improvement of mitochondria, called mitophagy. Melatonin is critical for those functions. It's critical for every function of the functionality of the mitochondria. Now, mitochondria are present throughout the entire body, and melatonin is present throughout the entire body. And it turns out that the heart and the brain, of course, are critical users of energy. So melatonin has critical roles in proper functioning of both the brain and in the heart. So in terms of maintaining proper health and energy production in both of these critical organs, but as well throughout the entire body. So it's a new way of looking at melatonin, understanding melatonin as a key, vital part of maintaining energy regulation, energy production in the body, which involves every single organ and its functionality. Melatonin is a key player in preventing cancers and can be used to treat cancers, particularly, by the way, breast cancer. Melatonin is critically important for all metabolic functions, regulating glucose, lipids, and blood pressure. It's a potent antioxidant. It turns out that melatonin helps to keep the production of free radicals down, so we don't get pro-inflammatory. Now, those of you who have heard me speak know I'm always in favor of an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. That it turns out that melatonin helps to maintain metabolic homeostasis and an anti-inflammatory state to the human body, because it is a potent antioxidant, prevents the formation of free radicals, and has all of these functions within the body involving mitochondria and all the metabolic functions of the body. And guess what? I do have to bring in estrogen, because estrogen and melatonin have a key interaction. It turns out that melatonin can be also thought of as an estrogen analog. In other words, melatonin can actually fit into certain estrogen receptors and act as an estrogen stimulus. So like an estrogen stimulus to the receptor. So it can modulate the receptors and estrogen sort of functionality as well. So there's a key relationship as well between estrogen and melatonin. And melatonin, by the way, exists in plants. It exists in so many different animals across the animal kingdom. Melatonin is truly a vitally important hormone, and it needs to take its proper place really atop the pedestal. I would put it next to estrogen. The more I've learned about melatonin, the more in awe I feel about melatonin. It's a hormone we all need. And remember, we need to eat at the right time, and we need to get enough sleep, and we need to get sleep at the right time. Well, what about supplementing with melatonin? I can't leave without telling you that yes, even though the optimal situation is that we make melatonin, we can also supplement with melatonin. And sometimes, especially for maintaining health and preventing illness, less is better. I usually recommend a half a milligram, just a half a milligram, that you take a couple of hours before bedtime. That will help suppress cortisol, and it's more like a trigger to the body to produce more melatonin rather than really enveloping your body with melatonin, because we really want melatonin to come out and peak at 2 a.m. We don't want to start with a big walloping dose of melatonin to disturb the normal rhythms of melatonin. But if you can't sleep, you can also try 1 milligram, just 1 milligram of melatonin at bedtime, and you can gradually up it to 2 or 3 and see how you feel. Now, if you are crossing across many different time zones, then you want to do it a little differently. You would want to take about 6 milligrams of melatonin at bedtime for 3 nights in a row whenever you get to a new time zone, and that will help you to adjust to that time zone. So melatonin will also help with circadian rhythm dysfunction and jet lag. So that's really important. Now, in terms of cancers, melatonin is used in much higher doses, 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams, even as high as 100 milligrams. But I would request that you not experiment with melatonin in such doses on your own, because everything is about timing as well as quantity. So the rhythm of melatonin is also important. So I don't want you to self-medicate with incredibly high doses of melatonin, even though I know it's available. Please stick with the initial 0.5 milligram, then maybe 1 milligram at bedtime, 0.5 milligram a couple of hours before, and then maybe up it to as much as 3, and see where you are with that. And then if that's not working for you and you're still having trouble with sleep or you're not feeling well, that's when you should speak with someone who has special expertise in sleep medicine at that point. So melatonin should be on your favorite list of hormones. It's a wonder hormone. It has so many magical properties in the body which are not well recognized and not appreciated. Yes, it's about sleep, but it's about so much more. So thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.